Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Brandon Griffiths. This is Brandon at Random Reviews. I was trying to do a thing there, but it kind of didn't work as well as I wanted it to. So anyway, welcome to the show. Today's episode is going to be about the Dark Knight Trilogy, a collection of 3 movies, as is typically the case with trilogies. I'm gonna get into that a little bit later. I got a few preliminary things that I just kind of want to talk about, discuss, and see. Maybe I'll get some feedback from this stuff. I never know. It's pretty rare, but it could happen. So I want to start off by talking about something. I've posted about this before on my my blog. I had a big long article about it. It's about the world of online dating and what it's like for people who aren't aware of what it's like, and what sucks about it, because honestly there's not really that much that's great about it. I don't know. I won't obviously go into what all I went into in that article because that'd be redundant, but I have this problem where, okay, so just a brief overview. When on most dating apps now, you swipe, you see a person's profile. You look at it, you see if it's something that you're interested in, if it's someone you're interested in, I should say, and then you swipe right if you want to like that person, and you swipe left if you don't want to like that person, if you want to, pass on that person, so to speak. This has taken over the online dating world. It didn't used to be like this, 10, 15 years ago. It used to be that you would just search for, somebody by age and area code and height and, different things like that. And you would just go through and look at a bunch of different profiles, and you could just kind of approach people cold and just, have no other initiation other than that, which it had its pros and its cons, but it worked. And now it's all the swiping business. So what I find now, and I've never had great success with dating. I've never been that guy that's had a girlfriend most of the time. Pretty much, I've just been, living the single life, but I've always been pursuing that non-single life, and one thing I've noticed with the online dating thing is, so I'll match with somebody, and let's say Facebook dating. So Facebook dating is free, and a lot of people are freaked out by it, but I don't really give a shit. I just I want to try and meet people. I want to find somebody, and so I've been on this Facebook dating, and it's been the same story as with every other app, especially recently. So as the guy, I feel kind of compelled to break the ice and, start the conversation. And so I'll ask, I try and change it up. I don't like to just feel like I'm running the same game with every girl. And I'll ask her, anything from, what does she have going on this weekend, or how has her week been, or something what are your 3 go-to songs when you have a karaoke night? And it's just I try and think outside of the box and not just say the most obvious questions and things like that. And what I'm finding more and more is everyone that I match with has they'll they'll read my message, they'll maybe answer the question in its, fullest capacity, but like they don't say anything back. Like I get it. Like I'm the guy, you're the girl, you're supposed to, the girls like to talk about themselves, blah, blah, blah. But it gets to a point where they are literally never asking me a question. And like I'm asking them, everything under the sun, and I'm trying to think of stuff to ask them. And it's like, I try and like slip in like, hey, I say that this is my answer to that question or whatever, just to kind of throw it out there and make it a little more obvious, like, I don't know. I just try and make it a little easier on them, but like, so they don't have any, it's like they don't have any conversation skills. And I am a person who is legitimately horrible at conversation. Like I have no good conversation skills. If I'm stuck, if I'm riding in a vehicle with somebody that I don't know very well, and they're just sitting there, like if they trail off and I trail off, like I could just sit there forever and not say another word because I'm that bad at continuing the conversation. And like also, my biggest problem is I feel like I'm not doing wrong here. Like I'm not asking the world of people. I'm asking for a little bit of things, coming back my way. And, I'm asking the right questions. I'm understanding, the needs that people have, like what they're looking for. I'm trying to like demonstrate that I can do things that they like or whatever. But I mean, that's the thing, is it's not that easy. Like they just don't want to, they don't answer. They don't do anything. If they even answer, they just say the answer, no question back, no furthering of the conversation. It's like dead ending every fucking time. It's like they'll answer it, I'll say another question. They'll answer it, I'll say another question. And it's like, and like what's worse is like the people that like don't answer in a way, like, how do I want to put this? People don't answer and elaborate on things. Like they just kind of like leave it at that, like they'll just say like their 1 or 2 word answer and they're done, like that's all they got. I mean, it's too much for, like, I don't know what I'm doing wrong. I'm hoping at some point someone will like tell me, because like people ask me about like, oh, are you dating anybody? Are you, doing this, doing that? And I'll say, no, I'm not dating anybody. And they'll ask me, how's it going? What's going on with it? And I'll explain this to them. And they don't really have an answer for me. And I don't know if it's that they're friends and family and they don't have the heart to tell me, like, Brandon, you're an undateable piece of shit. You need to give up on this and just accept the lonely life and, like, move the fuck on. I don't know. I honestly have no idea. I wish I did. It would be super terrific if I had some idea so I could actually, like, work on it. But, like, so long as I don't know what I'm doing wrong, I'll never have any fucking idea. I'm just never going to get there. And I mean, that's where I stand with it. Like, I have a really hard time. But something else I wanted to talk about before I get into the movie is, so Taylor Swift, who is one of my all-time favorite people, I'm just a huge fan of Taylor Swift, and I'm not ashamed to admit that. I really enjoy Taylor Swift. She has been, for, I guess, for her own personal reasons, she has been, like, re-recording her albums. Like, she started off recording her Fearless album again, and, like, it's good. Like, I mean, I like them, especially, like, I like listening to like ones like Fearless, where like I don't really know that album very well, but like when she moves on to like she's done Red, and Red was a solid album by her, and she doesn't, it's like I liked that album the way it was recorded, and then she comes in and re-records it, puts in longer songs and things like that. And I mean, I get like it basically makes more sense where if you're going to add to the songs, you can't just go back and like tack on those additional songs. But so she's just basically like re-recording these albums to like, and she's calling them Taylor's version, and they're good. It's just like I'm concerned like the direction she's headed with them. Like I really want them to be, good, and they have been so far, luckily. But like there's part of me that's like she's gonna release 1989, which is like one of my all-time favorite albums, and I don't know if I'm gonna be able to listen to all of it because like what I've heard of it so far, it's like it's too similar in content, and it's too different in the way it's recorded that I don't like. I want to like, because like that's the big thing is like, so like I listen to a lot of different music from different eras, and a lot of the bands from the 60s that I like, they will have like, have had lineup changes over the course of the decades since the 60s, and like they'll either that or they'll like change labels or whatever, and they'll want to re-record their work, and you'll find it and it'll say re-recorded after it, and like you just know like, ugh, it's not going to be the same. Like it's not even like it's worse like necessarily, it's just that you're used to something and then you're getting something else, and it's not as good, it doesn't feel as good. So I mean, like I'm excited for the 1989. I'm hoping to hear some new stuff, and like hopefully it's worth what it ends up being. Okay, so one thing I do want to mention, because I've talked about a little bit of my online dating and my Taylor Swift love. The one thing I do want to mention is, although this episode is like the last episode was Mission Impossible 1 and 2, this episode is the Dark Knight Trilogy. I promise you, going forward, like after this episode, it will not be all series of movies or, like film franchises. Like I'm not going to make the next episode all about James Bond, even though I do want to go there eventually. But like I'm only doing it because I'm, like Mission Impossible, it just stood out because I had like just recently watched Mission Impossible 2, and like I really wanted to do an episode on it. And then like on, as far as like the Dark Knight Trilogy, it's like I've already, like I talked about the new Batman movie with Robert Pattinson in an article, and I went, not super in depth with it, but I talked about it at some length. And then I did a super long article on the 1989 Batman movie with Michael Keaton, and I talked about everything I loved about that movie. I mean, it's a movie I watch like once a month, let's be honest. So that's kind of how I feel about it. So let me just dive right into the whole Dark Knight trilogy, okay? So how do I set the stage here? So you've got a trilogy. All three movies are directed by Christopher Nolan, and they star Christian Bale as Bruce Wayne / Batman. They have Michael Caine as Alfred Pennyworth. And, these guys are in all three movies, no matter what. And then, you've got Morgan Freeman as Lucius Fox, and Gary Oldman as Commissioner Gordon. And let me just be clear, all of these actors have done a they did an amazing job with this trilogy. Like, they really did. They delivered on their roles. They sold it, you know. It was spectacular. Like, I mean, for better or for worse, they were all, you know, amazing. And then, like, another constant in these three movies is Hans Zimmer did the score, and Hans Zimmer is amazing. Like, he's got such an interesting way. It like, honestly, it's not on the level to me of like John Williams and Star Wars, but like, it's on a level of like, if this movie didn't have Hans Zimmer's score in it, it would be nowhere near the same feel at all. You know, it would just not, it wouldn't feel the same. It would just be different, you know? And I mean, I love it. I love the sound of it, you know, like, and I'll probably mention it a couple of times here and there, but like, I just want to get that out of the way, that like the Hans Zimmer scoring is like the, you know, one of the many pieces that, you know, are interwoven throughout this trilogy. So we get to Batman Begins. All right. This one came out in June of 2005, June 15th, 2005. And so this was a reboot, you know, basically, like, without getting into it too much, there were the four Batman movies, you know, the 1989 one, Batman Returns, Batman Forever, and then Batman and Robin. Now, Batman and Robin performed so poorly, both with the critics and with the box office, that it killed the franchise until this movie came out. I mean, this movie effectively rebooted the Batman franchise and gave it another shot, you know, like, and it brought a level of realism that, you know, you just weren't seeing in superhero movies at all, you know, like, I mean, obviously, you can't be that realistic in a superhero movie if they're an actual superhero that's, like, non-existent. Like, it would be impossible for them to exist right now. But, like, you know, like Iron Man is a super realistic movie, but it's, you know, it's got Iron Man in it, and there's no suit that can make a man fly like that. Like, at least not that I'm aware of, or at least there hasn't always been. And so, like, you know, they take some realism in that movie, and that's like 3 years after this one. So we get into, you know, the realism, we get into the origin, which they touched on the origin in the four original movies, but they didn't ever really flesh it out. Like, they didn't spell out what was going on with it. And so, like, you get that, you know, you get these flashbacks of, like, Bruce Wayne as a child, you know, like, what happens with his parents, what all they do, you know, and the Waynes are so different. Like, I mean, it's crazy. Like, you only get a few scenes with the Waynes, like Thomas and Martha says nothing, and like Thomas, he's good, you know, and like obviously like Bruce just adores him and just thinks he's the best, and you know, it's like it's so well set up that it's like, you know, the city is falling on hard times, and you know, these affluent people have set it up to, you know, like, they're trying to make a difference and they're trying to improve things, and they just don't, like, you know, it's just the tragic irony of it all, that they're like the ones that are trying to help, and they end up being the ones that fall victim to what the city has become. And so, like, Bruce grows up, obviously, you know, he wants to, originally, like, he wants to, you know, he goes to college, you know, and he comes back for the hearing about, like, the, you know, the man who shot his parents, and, you know, like, he has gone out on his own, and, like, he meets Liam Neeson's character, and, you know, Liam Neeson's character is He's so, like, honestly, I like him a lot. Like, I think he's really good. He's not, so, like, I gotta say, I just want to say it right now. I'm gonna spoil these movies because I can't talk about them how I want to talk about them without, like, giving in things. And I mean, there's giving it, or without giving a lot away. And so, Liam Neeson is, he starts off and he has this ruse where he's, pretending to be this man named Ducard, and, it turns out that he's actually this Ra's al Ghul person that is the head of this League of Shadows, I think it is. I think actually in the comics it's actually like League of Assassins or something, but they called it the League of Shadows for some reason. And so, like, Liam Neeson's big thing, his character, I should say, is he wants to, like, basically their group has, like, he's claiming that they've, like, caused the fall of, multiple different civilizations that have grown too crazy and, had to be put down, basically. And, like, so he targets Gotham next. And when it becomes clear to Bruce what he's doing, because this guy's been training him this whole time, and, Bruce has learned a lot from him. And, like, Liam Neeson, like, tells him, he lets the cat out of the bag that, like, he's leading, he wants Bruce to lead these men into Gotham to, take down the city, and, like, and Bruce is like, what are you fucking talking about? And, like, he goes and he's got all of this, so Liam Neeson, or Ra's al Ghul, I should say, I'll just refer to him by his character's name. He, Bruce, like, kind of, like, burns his house down and, like, leaves him, but, like, he saves his life, but he leaves him there, like, he doesn't, like, see to it that he's taken care of or anything. And so he goes back and, like, Alfred's there, and, and, like, I love Michael Caine. Alfred was a perfect role for him. Like, it's so great. At his age, like, it was just wonderful. I can't stress enough how much I love Michael Caine in this series of movies. So Michael Caine comes and gets him, explains what's been going on, like, Wayne Enterprises is, they're going public, and they're going to, make all these changes to, the way the company is run. And, he finds out that they had Bruce Wayne declared dead because he's been gone for over 7 years, and he luckily left everything to Alfred, and, like, so he's just, he's like, la 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 la, and, like, so Alfred's, like, all excited, like, being all smug because he owns all of this shit, and I mean, obviously he doesn't really, but, like, he's, you can borrow the rose if you like, it's like, yeah, that's fucking great. Like, only Michael Caine can do that, you know what I mean? Like, it's not the same with, the Alfred of the 4 Batman movies from the 80s and 90s. Like, he was, I like Michael Gough, but he's just not the same. He doesn't have that charisma on screen. And so anyway, Bruce comes back, and he kind of, like, he wants to be, he's telling Alfred he wants to be this thing, he wants to become a symbol, and he wants to strike terror, he wants to, put fear into those who prey on the fearful, and, things like that. And he just, he's kind of piecing together what's going to be Batman. And, like, him and Alfred, like, work on, assembling the suit and what they need to do. They need to, order all of these parts, and they have to have so many thousand of them to make it not suspicious. And then, Bruce meets this Lucius Fox guy who is played by Morgan Freeman, the one and only, and who is also wonderful. God damn it, so fucking good. You've got Morgan Freeman, and he is in what they call applied sciences, which is like a division of like tech development in Wayne Enterprises. And it's like he just goes in and, talks about all of this, all this different stuff. He's got this thing called the Tumbler, and it's what ends up being the Batmobile. It's like a bridging vehicle. And, he's got this memory cloth that becomes Batman's cape. And, he finds this suit that ends up being like the base of Batman's suit, and it's like this really extensive body armor, that was like too expensive to sell to the military. And so he basically suits him up. Like Bruce kind of like plays it close to the chest and, doesn't really explain what he's doing, obviously, because he doesn't know Lucius very well. And so obviously, like, Lucius, like, at a certain point in the movie, he knows that it's him because, who else could this guy be that's, on the news in this Batmobile or whatever, this Tumbler. And so along the way, I forgot to mention, there is Bruce's childhood friend, Rachel Dawes. She is played by Katie Holmes, and I'm not like a huge Katie Holmes fan, but like she's great. She's pretty, you know what I mean? She's a good-looking actress, and she did an admirable job in this role, and so she's an assistant district attorney, and she is trying to, do what she can to fix Gotham legally, and like not let, all of these organized crime bosses lord over the town, and all that shit. And so she's kind of an idealist, and like she crosses paths with Bruce, and Bruce is putting on this facade of like, I'm going to be the guy that is, how do I put this? I'm going to be the guy that's like the billionaire playboy. I'm picking up, I'm bringing multiple women with me when I go out, and I'm going to, do all of this outrageous stuff. Like, I'm going to buy things that aren't for sale, and I'm just going to do whatever I want to, just to let people know that I couldn't possibly be this Batman guy. And, she runs into him while he's doing this one night, and you can just tell how disappointed she is in him, because like there was like a scene earlier in the movie where she talks to him about, like he basically lets it slip that he was going to, like, he planned to shoot the guy Joe Chill that killed his parents, when he got out of the trial. And somebody from organized crime kills him first, so Bruce isn't able to do that. And so she's really beside herself with disappointment in him. And then she's disappointed again because she'd heard that he was back in town after being declared dead, and she's disappointed to see that this billionaire playboy is who he wants to be. And he like tries to explain to her that it's not really him, it's not really what it's all about, like what he's all about. And she says this line that always, is a great line. It's not who you are underneath, but what you do that defines you. And so she just, sticks with that, and like that resonates with him. And so, Bruce starts kind of or I should say Batman starts making waves on there's a scene when, like, it's not the first time you see him as Batman, he's like disrupting at the shipping yards. He's disrupting the last shipments of these drugs that are coming in, and you don't really know what's going on. But he, like, kind of shows off his, like, creation of, like, fear in an environment before fighting somebody. And, like, he gets the crime boss, Carmine Falcone, who is played by Tom Wilkinson. And it's just amazing. Like, he just... Oh, man. And so he gets him... he gets him scared. He's like, the crime boss Falcone is locked away and blah, blah, blah. And so he goes and Okay, so there's also this character named Dr. Jonathan Crane, who is, like, in cahoots with what turns out to be, and, like, you don't know it, but, like, it turns out to be Ra's al Ghul's organization. And, like, Crane is using Falcone as, like, the middleman, or, like, the low-level enforcer to, like, get these drugs in that need to be brought in, and you don't know why. So they're basically, like, developing this plot to, like, poison the water supply, and the only reason people haven't felt the effects of it is because, like, it has to be inhaled through the lungs, and it's just amazing. Like, it's such a cool idea because, like, okay, so that's, like, the thing is, like, Wayne Enterprises has this microwave emitter stolen, and it's this giant device that, like, is used to vaporize an enemy's water supply in desert warfare. And they're going to use this, they're going to take, there's the monorail that the Wayne family built, and they're going to take this microwave emitter thing that they stole and use it to run along the pipelines of water and just create chaos throughout Gotham. And so, like, Ra's al Ghul comes back, and he comes at, at this birthday party for Bruce, and, basically, like, there's a scene where he's introduced to a person, and they call him Ra's al Ghul, and he's like, "You're not Ra's al Ghul. I watched him die." And it doesn't sound anything like it's just ridiculous. So, but anyway, like, back to what I was talking about. So, you got this big scene with the tumbler. There's a big thing with, like, these bats coming into town, with this transmitter that Batman has, and, like, he calls him backup, and it's just so fucking awesome. Like, it helps him to escape, and then he leads them on a chase across town in this tumbler, and he's got to get Katie Holmes, or Rachel Dawes, to safety, and because she's been exposed to this drug, and like, Bruce had been exposed to the drug before, and he had been exposed to it when he was at the League of Shadows, and he was exposed to it by the Scarecrow, who is Crane's alter ego, and the Scarecrow, has, like, weaponized it and is using it, like, for that, and so Bruce is, like, he's already got, like, the antidote for it, and, like, they're talking about, like, what they can do to produce more of it because they know this plot's coming, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to talk about the entire plot of all of these movies, but I start rolling and I just can't stop. So one thing I want to talk about is the voice, okay? So Batman's voice, Christian Bale made some choices with the Batman voice, and they get like progressively more outrageous, I'll say. Like I love it, but like at the same time I can accept that it's ridiculous as well. So like in this one, you know, the scene I can think of best. I'm going to try and emulate these voices, and I know it's going to sound stupid, but I'm going to do it anyway. So he's, you know, he's there like Batman's there giving information to Rachel Dawes, and she's like, "Who are you?" And he's like, "Someone like you, someone who'll rattle the cages." And like it's raspy, it's low, and it doesn't sound bad. You know, it sounds a bit much like he could have just done what Michael Keaton did and like speak in a lower register, and it wouldn't be obvious that he was Bruce Wayne. But like he does this voice, and so that's what he sticks with. And I'll talk about the voice in the next movies. But yeah, I just wanted to make sure I touched on that. And so this movie, I mean, like it's very satisfying at the end. You know, you get this great moment of like, you know, like he saves the city obviously, and like he goes through, and it's like he at the end of the movie, like the very end, he is on the rooftop with Gordon, and he, you know, there's a bat signal now on the roof of police headquarters, and he says to, you know, he says nice and like taps it, and then like they like give him like Commissioner Gordon, or I should say Lieutenant Gordon, gives him a playing card, like a Joker playing card, and it sets up the next movie. And he says, "I'll look into it," and like so it's like my favorite part is like, it honestly gives me chills, and I know it's just because I fucking love Batman, but leave me the fuck alone on this one. He says, "You know, I never said thank you." That's what Gordon says to Batman, and Batman replies back with, "And you'll never have to." And it's like, oh god, that is what Batman is all fucking about, man. Like he is the guy that's just doing it, and he doesn't want the thanks. He's doing it to prevent another little boy from losing his parents, you know, basically like just that. Okay, so as we close out this movie, I want to talk about, okay, the budget was $150 million, which is, it's a pretty hefty budget. It's not, you know, Avatar level for the time, but it's pretty high. And so the worldwide gross of the movie was $373.7 million, which is pretty good, but like not as good as you want it to be. You know, like you want it to be higher than that, because like that's just barely, like, probably after like marketing and everything, like that's just barely over, you know, you're just barely getting half of your money, you know, like, or not half of your money, but you're just barely getting double the revenue back. And so this is rated 8.2 out of 10 on IMDb. Rotten Tomatoes, 84% for the critics and 94% for the audience. Now, they just absolutely fucking, you know, like, I'm surprised the critics didn't like it more. Like, it seems like such a critically acclaimable movie, if that's a word, I don't know. But, I mean, I just love, honestly, Batman Begins for me is 5 out of 5, no questions asked. I don't give a shit, fuck you. So that takes us to our next movie, because I'm taking way longer to do this than I planned to, so, you know, that's the way it is. So we've got The Dark Knight. So the follow-up movie to this, it's released on July 18th, 2008. So Batman Begins I saw twice in theaters, okay? I saw it once on like the regular screen and then once in IMAX. And then like with The Dark Knight, I saw it once on the Thursday night of opening night, and that was in regular screen, and then like the next day I went with my friend Cody and saw it in IMAX, and then eventually my mother, who didn't believe me until someone at work told her that The Dark Knight was good, wanted to go see it with me, and so we did. And so anyway, so the biggest story of this entire movie has to be Heath Ledger, not only his performance, but his tragic demise. Basically he got consumed by the role of the Joker, and it got the best of him. It's very unfortunate. So luckily this movie will be the one that I'll have the easiest time glossing over the plot, because there's way too much plot to talk about right now. But so Heath Ledger's performance is amazing. He's got this very strange demeanor and way of speaking, and it's odd. It's creepy. It's just bizarre. And then you've got Aaron Eckhart, who plays Harvey Dent and subsequently Two-Face in this movie, and he is very good in this. I mean, it's unfortunate that everybody in this movie has to be overshadowed by Heath Ledger's performance. Doesn't even fucking matter how good anybody does. If you're not Heath Ledger in this movie, you're second fiddle no matter what. And so Katie Holmes chose not to come back for this movie. She wouldn't come back and reprise her role of, is it reprise or reprise? I don't know. Reprise is what I'm saying, because that's what it looks like it is. She didn't want to reprise her role as Rachel Dawes, and she opted to make a movie with Diane Keaton and Queen Latifah called Mad Money, about like a bank robbery or some fucking thing like that. And like, can you imagine how fucking dumb she must have felt when she saw what, like, just the hype of this movie, like how much it was going to mean. And so, it's tragic she didn't come back, but she was replaced by Maggie Gyllenhaal, who I typically like. I really like Maggie Gyllenhaal. She's not as good looking as Katie Holmes, in my opinion, and I know I'm being shallow, I'm sorry, but I have to mention it. But like, Maggie Gyllenhaal, the thing about her in this movie is like, I can't explain it, but she's got this, especially in the early scenes, she's got this way of talking like she's almost trying to be seductive. And usually that's not a thing she does. So I don't know if it was like a direction thing or what. But like, I mean, this movie, like, there is basically like a heartbeat throughout this entire movie thanks to Hans Zimmer. Like, it is just constant. Like, it's just dud, like, just, it's, oh man. Like, he does such an amazing job. And like, that's the kind of thing. Like, Hans Zimmer, his score is what is going to help this movie and this whole series of movies stand apart from like ones like Batman 1989. I love Batman 1989, but like, they put a bunch of fucking Prince songs in the soundtrack, and when you watch that movie, it feels dated. And so, I was gonna try and do something where it's just, the plot is so ridiculous. Like, there's so much plot in this movie. There are so many things to think about. There's just, I can't even recite it all. Like, it's that much, but it's definitely compelling throughout. You're never bored in this movie, and it's fucking awesome. And one of my favorite scenes, though, I have to mention, is like, so you've got the Tumblr from from Batman Begins. It returns in this movie, and so does actually for a minute, which, by the way, I forgot to mention, but like, Scarecrow, Jonathan Crane, is played by Cillian Murphy, who is really good as well, and he actually ends up appearing in all three of these movies. Spoilers, Scarecrow does not die in these movies. Anyway, So there's a scene with the Batmobile where it crashes or something. I can't remember exactly how it breaks down, but like essentially like Bruce or Batman activates the escape pod thing, and like basically like it makes a bat cycle, a bat pod motorcycle out of like the wheel of two of the wheels of the Batmobile. It's fucking amazing. Like it's so great. And like so all of these things they're doing in this movie, there's so much practical stuff, like not like I don't know, I couldn't even honestly tell you what they used CGI on for the most part. Like it's difficult to say. But like my favorite thing is like, so you got Alfred, you got Lucius, Alfred is like, "You hammered them, sir," and in their desperation, they turned to a man that they didn't fully understand. And I mean, like, that's fucking great. I just fucking love it. And like the voice here, that's something I have to mention because I'm gonna do it with every movie. Is the voice gets dialed up quite a bit for Batman. He, like everything is like this. It's like, and he doesn't. It's like, where were the other drugs going? It's like, that's Batman Begins, but like it's that level every time he says anything in this movie. And so the ending of this movie, like a lot of trilogies, like most popularly I would say Empire Strikes Back stands out as like, kind of like a downer ending almost. Like they don't end up winning really in the end. I mean, they do, but they don't. And so like Bruce is, Batman's going on the run. I keep calling him Bruce, like he and I are like besties or something. Anyway, Bruce is on the run, and then, like they've got to chase him, and they're doing it because they know he can take it, and like that's what they're saying, and like he caught the Joker, he, Two-Face died, all this shit, and like they're basically going to make up a story about what happened, which, I mean, it's debatable about what they could have done in this situation. They probably didn't have to do what they did, but they did anyway. And so I really enjoy that. And then like so good. Like, honestly. So the budget of this movie was $185 million, and like I said, there are a lot of practical effects, which I assume practical is still cheaper than CGI, but CGI has to be creeping down. Like, it's probably getting more affordable because, like, these Star Wars TV shows and stuff are like all using CGI, and they're all, really well done and stuff. So the gross of this movie, $1.006 billion with a B, dollars, and the rating on IMDb, it is, I believe, top 5 all-time IMDb, 9.0 out of 10, and on Rotten Tomatoes, the critic rating was 94%, and the audience rating was also 94%, which is nice. I mean, I have to say, 5 out of 5, no question. The question would be, really, do I like, every time I watch Batman Begins, I think maybe I like Batman Begins a little better than this movie, but it's not by much if it is. And I just love it. Like, it's so great. And so that carries us on to The Dark Knight Rises, okay? So this came out in July 16th, specifically, of 2012. It features some newcomers. It's got we've got Joseph Gordon-Levitt, who plays John Blake, and we've got Anne Hathaway, who plays Selina Kyle, not Catwoman. Catwoman is never said explicitly in this movie. We got Tom Hardy, who plays Bane. Marion Cotillard, I think is how it's pronounced, who plays Miranda Tate slash Gasp, spoiler alert, Talia al Ghul. And then you've got Ben Mendelsohn, who plays John Daggett, who is, just like, another bad guy type. He's just a crime boss type. And it's funny that, like, there's a character that I remember from Batman the Animated Series that is named Roland Daggett. And, like, if they cast Ben Mendelsohn to play Roland Daggett, it would not have been doing a service to that character, because, like, Ben Mendelsohn is not the type to, like, the guy we're talking about. Like, he would have literally been better played by, like, James Gandolfini or something, like he was that kind of gruff kind of guy. So the plot of this movie, I would say, it's lacking. I mean, it's not as good as the first two movies. It doesn't deliver on a lot of what we would like to see in a movie like this. So, it's about, like, Bruce Wayne has been, in hiding for several years. I can't remember if it's like 7-8 years, something like that. And, so obviously Batman, he hasn't been doing anything. And, everything is just kind of like, peacetime type things. And you find out that this Bane character is lurking in the shadows and, like, building an army, basically. And Bane is played by Tom Hardy, he's magnificent. His voice is certainly interesting. I don't know if I could do a Bane voice very well. Perhaps you're wondering why someone would shoot a man before throwing him out of a plane. I don't see that was fucking horrible. I should have covered my mouth and all sorts of stuff, but Tom Hardy is awesome. Anne Hathaway plays, this Selena Kyle, this cat burglar, and she just likes to steal stuff, basically. And she's kind of, I was never much of an Anne Hathaway fan, like, either as an actress or, like, looks-wise before this movie. But, like, this movie, like, she's got some fucking charisma, and she has a level of confidence that's, like, super attractively intimidating. And, like, I just love it. Like, this made me, like, an Anne Hathaway fan, and so I'm happy to be that. So, basically, like, you've got her, and she's kind of, like, playing into it a little bit, with, like, she gets Bruce's fingerprints from his safe, and she's, sells them to one of John Daggett's men, and then, she kind of gets caught up in the web, and, like, John Blake is investigating what's going on, and he doesn't believe, like, he basically, it's just, I've made fun of it before, but, like, so John Daggett does not believe the story, which is, like, from the end of The Dark Knight, they basically blame all of these murders on Batman for, like, what the Joker did and or specifically what Two-Face did. And he just, like, John Blake doesn't believe it. And, like, he knows, and the way he knows that Bruce Wayne is Batman is, like, Bruce came to visit at, like, a group home or an orphanage or whatever you want to call it. And, like, John Blake claims that the reason that he knew who he was because of the look on his face, the feeling of something about when you're angry in your bones and stuff, like, but, like, it's like, dude, he's a fucking billionaire. He's got the right build, the right race, the right, overall everything. He is filthy fucking rich enough to afford to do all this stuff. He doesn't have like a real day job, and like John Blake just knows because of this look on his face this one time. He just knew. And it's like, okay, John, that's great. And so like that's the kind of thing, like it's one of those things you're like, all right, I guess. I mean, so it's like, so Bane takes over, like he goes to this, there's this pretty cool scene at this football game. It's a big stadium full of people, and like he brings out this bomb. I won't get into where the bomb came from, but like suffice it to say, he brings out the bomb and the only man in the world who can defuse the bomb, and or the only man in the world who can turn, to turn it on basically. And he's also the only man that can defuse it. And then like once he turns it on, Bane shoots him dead. And so like, Bruce has already made, he's already decided he's going to be Batman again. So like, so Batman is out, like there was a scene where they like rob the stock exchange or whatever, and like they use Bruce Wayne's name to do a bunch of stuff, and like it's all great, I mean it's pretty cool. It's a pretty intense couple of scenes, and yeah, I mean, but it's good, like, so Bane basically keeps this city on lockdown. Gotham City is on lockdown for a large portion of this movie, and like Selina Kyle tricks Batman into going down to where Bane ultimately ends up being, and Bane ends up breaking Batman's back and taking him to this prison out in the middle of nowhere, and nobody can escape from it or whatever, blah blah blah. And then it's like he just like Bruce seems like he's how do I put this? I mean, like he's trying to get better in the prison, and they're like putting his disc back into place in his back, and like it's just super interesting, like because like he has to learn to climb these walls of this pit prison, and like it's pretty cool. And like the other thing is Bruce, like Bruce talks to Lucius, and Lucius, played by Morgan Freeman, amazing as always. He was in the previous movie, by the way, but like, anyway, so, he talks to Lucius. Lucius gives him this thing that he calls the Bat, and it is like this giant aircraft, like it's weird looking, like it looks unlike anything you've ever seen in the air, like it's just so bizarre, and like so that's pretty cool. That makes a couple of appearances and like blah blah blah, and I'm not gonna keep doing what I'm doing right now, which is like I don't want to dwell on the plot too much, but like so there's a scene that Alfred talks about, because there's a lot of friction with Alfred, and Alfred's really disappointed with Bruce because he won't give up the Batman at all, and he feels like he's not going to stop until it kills him. And he talks about, Alfred talks about while Bruce is away in the course of the Batman Begins movie, the part I talked about where he was declared dead, Alfred says that every day or every summer or something he would, go out to Italy or something. And he explained, there's this cafe down by the river, and every time he went there, he hoped he would see Bruce Wayne there and like just living his best life, moving on from all the stuff, just like being happy, maybe, a wife and a couple of kids, whatever. And they wouldn't say anything to each other, but they would look at each other and like know that it was going to be, that they were good, right? And so he does that, like he tells that story and you see that happen. And then it's like this movie builds up to where it's like, oh no, this bat aircraft thing doesn't have autopilot, And so he takes it and he has to take this bomb. He has to go out over the bay and fucking get rid of the bomb. And so he's effectively like literally dying for it. But there's a scene, where he has like the final showdown with Bane. And he's like, where's the trigger? Like, sorry, that was probably a little loud in the old microphone, but I had to do it. So he talked about it. He talks like that, and like but like, he's gonna sacrifice himself, blah blah blah. He goes out, the bomb explodes. Everybody's like, oh fuck, he really did it. And then like there's this little fucking throwaway scene like a couple minutes later after Alfred cries at his fucking funeral and shit, and like Lucius finds out that Bruce had like fixed the autopilot on the bat. And so then like the final scene you see is like, it's both Bruce and Selena at that cafe, and Alfred is going to that cafe, and like he sees him across the way, and then he goes and then it shows like John Blake, who, by the way, they like decide to make it a little thing that he's actually named Robin. Like his given name is Robin. And I have a reaction to it every time. I wish I could say it was a good reaction, but it kind of makes me cringe a little bit. And so like John Blake's basically going to take over as Batman at the end of this movie, like, so you just kind of see like, you don't ever see him as Batman, but he's like getting into the Batcave for the first time and stuff. And, they're kind of like, all right, that's what's going to happen. And so they just like close on that. So this movie had a budget of $230 million. So it was like, $50 million more than The Dark Knight. And it had a worldwide gross of $1.081 billion. And then on IMDb, it has an 8.4 out of 10, which is pretty solid. I think it might be a little overrated by that, but it's still pretty decent. On Rotten Tomatoes, 87% for critics, 90% for audiences, which I guess that makes sense, but like, I don't know. I mean, like, this is definitely the weakest film in the trilogy without question. It's got like, so this is how I'd put it. So overall, like, the trilogy, it's like the first movie is like, it's hopeful. Like, even though like it's, terrifying what's going on in the plot, like, it ends on a hopeful note where it's like, okay, we're gonna do this. You know what I mean? And then like you move on to The Dark Knight, and it's like, it's super intense the whole time. It's got a couple of sad moments and stuff, but like for the most part, it's just super serious. And then The Dark Knight Rises, you've just got this like lingering doom and gloom feeling. Like, it is, oh man, it is unpleasant. Like, I like it. I like the movie, and I think it needs to be that, but like, man, is it fucking a downer about stuff, like, it's just, and like, you go from a movie that has like a big character like the Joker and a big character like Two-Face, and then you get like Bane, who talks a lot, but like he's not saying a ton, like he's not saying too much. And like he's got, the mask over his face so it kind of conceals what he looks like. I still have a giant man crush on Tom Hardy, no questions asked. And then, like Anne Hathaway doesn't really have much of a part as a villain until she's already like helping, with Bruce and Batman. I would say overall, The Dark Knight Rises, I guess I'll say a 4 out of 5 stars. Boy, that was really tough to say out loud, because I went into this thinking 4.5, but like the more I think about it, the more I'm like, yeah, this movie had a lot of stuff that they could have fixed, that they just needed to identify was like not ideal, and they could have just fixed it. One thing I would have liked to have seen go different is obviously, like, I would have loved to have kept Katie Holmes. As much as I like Maggie Gyllenhaal, I think Katie Holmes was a better fit for the role, and she did a better job as Rachel Dawes. Maggie Gyllenhaal, overall, a better actress than Katie Holmes, for sure. But, and so, with Christopher Nolan, like, this his big thing was, like, being grounded in reality and, like, being realistic and stuff. And, like, he doesn't do, like, he tried to, he produced the movie Man of Steel, which was directed by Zack Snyder. And, like, I thought when I saw that movie, when I saw, like, the previews for that movie, I thought, oh, man, this is going to be fucking sweet. A Dark Knight Trilogy, but with Superman. Like, awesome. Because Christopher Nolan's doing it, so it's got to be it. And then I didn't realize at the time, okay, he's just a producer. That means dick to, the fact that Zack Snyder, who has a bit of a reputation for filmmaking style, but whatever. So, yeah, that's where I'll leave you. This one's a little bit long. Sorry about that, but, like, obviously it's something I'm very excited about talking about. So, yeah, I would say, if you're one of the 3 people in the world who hasn't seen the Dark Knight Trilogy, then I'd go out and watch it. I got to go back. The Dark Knight Rises 4.5, okay? Because I do find it a little satisfying. So 4.5 out of 5 stars. Yeah, that's what I'm going with. Okay. Well, I guess we'll end on that note, and I would like to thank everybody for tuning in, and enjoy this theme music. Brandon at Random Reviews is performed, written, directed, produced, and edited by Brandon Griffiths. Theme music is performed by Augusto Diniz from Fiverr.